Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this session on Introduction to Virtual Kubelet featuring KIP by Elotal. I have been an engineer for 20 years, working on database server technologies and virtualization before moving into container ecosystem. I'm presently working in virtual kubelet / KIP area in the generic domain of nodeless Kubernetes. So today we're going to talk about why we need virtual kubelet and talk about what different virtual kubelet providers are, including KIP by Elotal, and show you a demo of virtual kubelet in action on AWS. And we'll talk about a couple of caveats for nodeless Kubernetes ecosystem, including virtual kubelet and takeaways. So normally when you deploy your Kubernetes cluster onto an on-premise data center, you are managing a set of worker nodes that are these finite homogeneous machines sitting in your private data center. And your capacity planning was pretty simple because you just had to go and procure a purchase order and add in your new worker nodes into your existing Kubernetes cluster. As public cloud adoption increases, all of a sudden we are having to think about what are the kinds of worker nodes we need on each cloud provider. For example, on AWS, how do I pick from the 100-something different kinds of on-demand instances? And by the way, spot instances are more cost effective. So can I consume spot instances, and what about Fargate launch types? And in addition to that, the unused capacity on public cloud will translate to wasted spend. So we want to try to set our auto scaling groups knobs such that we have enough capacity when we get unexpected spikes in workload surges. And also at the same time, we are not wasting capacity by having pre-provisioned worker nodes that are not running any workload. So what virtual kubelet does is it presents a virtual worker node to your Kubernetes API server that sits alongside existing kubelet worker nodes that are running on regular nodes. The virtual kubelet worker node, it speaks kubelet API to the API server, and under the covers, it's actually presenting two interfaces to users. The first set of interfaces are making sure that your pod lifecycle management is happening correctly, create pod, update pod, etc. And the second set of interface API calls make sure that your image pull and image API, image lifecycle management tasks are happening as expected from a regular kubelet node. So the way virtual kubelet can plug into an existing Kubernetes server is it can simply sit alongside existing worker nodes, or you could have a virtual kubelet worker node, a single virtual kubelet worker node in your Kubernetes cluster that's reporting to your control plane. So when a pod comes in to be scheduled through the control plane, the virtual kubelet worker node, it advertises very large capacity, whereas in actuality, it's running on very small compute capacity availability. And under the covers, virtual kubelet works with a set of providers which are pluggable. So you can pick from the existing set of providers like KIP from Elotal, which will enable you to deploy your pods onto any of the cloud providers like AWS, GCP, or Azure and consume on-demand spot or Fargate launch types. Or you could pick from any of the plethora of providers that are all open source and all available through virtual kubelet page on GitHub that you can use to provision the right-sized compute for your applications just in time. So once the provider provisions the just-in-time provisioned compute, the pod is shipped over to the compute node. And once the pod terminates, the underlying compute is automatically terminated by the provider. So think about it as instead of having a large set of worker nodes where you're stuffing pods into them, you have a deconstructed cluster. Virtual kubelet and the provider, they actually run as a pod on an existing worker node, or you could schedule it on the management plane itself if you choose to do so. So it's the virtual kubelet node itself is not running on a physical, it's not running on a separate new physical worker node. It's simply a pod that is speaking kubelet API API and advertises to the API server that, hey, API server, I'm a worker node and I have this infinite capacity and feel free to schedule pods onto me. So when we look at the comparison of how this differs from vanilla Kubernetes, in normal Kubernetes clusters, you have these large static worker nodes that are large bins, and you're stuffing pods of different sizes into these large worker nodes. So we are packing the bins with pods of different sizes, whereas in nodeless Kubernetes using Virtual Kubelet advertises itself as a very large virtual worker node, and we have just-in-time bins or compute nodes for your pods that come up and disappear according to the pod lifecycle. So you have a truly elastic compute cluster that is simply a deconstructed cluster where compute appears and disappears according to the pod lifecycle, and you can pick various flavors of compute for different pods based on the pod's SLA instead of kind of tying yourself down to one kind or a predetermined set of compute nodes for your worker node flavor types. So let's go ahead and look at a demo of how this all fits together. Here I have a Kubernetes cluster running on AWS that has two nodes. We have one master node and we have one worker node. This worker node is actually a virtual worker node that's running Virtual Kubelet and a KIP provider from Elotle. So this is simply a pod that's running on the master node actually. So let's verify that. The master node is ending in 1983. So if I do a kubectl get pods in the kubesystem namespace, we should see the KIP provider pod that is running. So that is the KIP provider worker node. So it's simply a pod. And if we look at describe pod on KIP pod, we see that the pod is running on, is scheduled on the master node. So it's simply a pod that is running on the master node, and it is advertising itself, the pod is advertising itself as a worker node. So if we, let's go ahead and see describe node on the virtual worker node, which is our KIP provider 0. And if we look at the capacity of the virtual worker node, it's advertising 20 vCPUs, 512 gigs of RAM, and capacity of being able to run 200 pods. So this is configurable with the virtual worker node pod using a config map. So we can set hard limits on the max capacity that we want to consume using the virtual worker node. So let's look at deploying a simple Nginx application. I have an Nginx deployment with one replica, and I want it to be running on Virtual Kubelet node. And I did not specify any reservation or limits for CPU, memory, network IOPS, or storage IOPS for the Nginx pod. So I don't care how many resources are thrown at this pod. So if we go ahead and schedule this pod, schedule the deployment, what's happening under the covers is this deployment has one pod. So the pod is going to get scheduled on the control plane looks down and it sees one worker node. It has plenty of capacity. The pod, the replica for the deployment doesn't have any reservation requests. So the control plane will go ahead and schedule the pod, the replica for it onto the Virtual Kubelet node. And the Virtual Kubelet node will talk to KIP provider, and the KIP provider will provision just-in-time right-sized compute for the pod on the cloud provider of choice, which is AWS in this case. And once the compute instance comes up, the Nginx replica is dispatched over to this just-in-time provisioned compute instance. And as far as the control plane is concerned, the pod appears to be running on the Virtual Kubelet node. So let's see what's going on with the pod. The pod is in running state. So if I go ahead and look at the name of the pod in my EC2 console, I see that there is a just-in-time provisioned compute node of type T3 Nano that was provisioned for the pod, and the pod is dispatched over to this compute node. And we see that the labels of the deployment automatically translate to tags for the pod, and also the namespace and the name tag and the name of the pod are all available through your tags of the just-in-time provisioned compute node. The system automatically picked T3 Nano as the compute launch type because I did not specify any reservation or limits for resources for my Nginx YAML out here. So we got the most cost-effective compute launch types. So you can also allow the system to automatically pick spot instances of Fargate launch types, etc. So if we go ahead and delete the Nginx workload, once the pod is terminated, the underlying compute is automatically terminated by Virtual Kubelet. So if I go ahead and refresh my my EC2 console, we see that the underlying instance is automatically being shut down. So what we get is, instead of having pre-provisioned always-on worker nodes that are being stuffed with pods, we have worker nodes that are of just the right size for each pod that come up and disappear according to the pod lifecycle. So having said that, what are the workloads that are the best use cases for using Virtual Kubelet? And before we go there, some of the gains is we have much simplified operations where you don't have to hand curate cloud compute and maintain and monitor these large sets of heterogeneous worker nodes on various cloud providers. And you have much stronger multi-tenant security. Because we have one compute node per pod isolation, so you have much stronger isolation between different pods. And also, on average, the utilization of Kubernetes clusters on public cloud is about 20% for compute. So we have about 80% cost savings by automatically preventing wasted spend. So some of the use cases that are really good fits for trying out Virtual Kubelet right away are CI/CD workloads, because by nature, CI/CD workloads are super bursty. So think about it as your cloud bill being zero if you have zero tests running, and if you have an unexpected spike in test use case, the compute for the additional tests come up in parallel instead of going in a lockstep, one single worker node at a time model. So your users will never have a wait time when their tests are submitted, because you're truly making use of the elastic nature of cloud compute that's available for you. Another use case for Virtual Kubelet is workloads that need expensive hardware. If you're running machine learning workloads and they need GPU devices, it's going to be a huge waste of money and resources if you have the compute up and running but not running any workload and spinning your bill. So if you can use Virtual Kubelet to have just-in-time compute come up when you run your machine learning jobs, and the compute automatically be terminated once your job is terminated, that's a really good use case. Another good use case is cloud bursting. If you have your Kubernetes control plane sitting on on-premise data center or AWS or Azure, and you want to burst to a different cloud provider, it's a really good model to use Virtual Kubelet, because what you can do is your single control plane can have one Virtual Kubelet node that is shipping pods to Azure, one Virtual Kubelet node that's shipping pods to AWS, and another Virtual Kubelet node that's shipping pods to on-premise data centers, so that you can focus on your core business value proposition instead of maintaining this huge spread of hundreds of control planes lying across various cloud providers that you want to consume compute from. Some of the caveats of the Virtual Kubelet and Nodeless ecosystem is there are a couple of features that are still work in progress. Support for persistent volumes is still not available. And the way daemon sets are intended to function is different from the way daemon sets would function in the Virtual Kubelet world, because we fundamentally have one compute node per pod isolation. So you don't have one daemon that's servicing all of the pods that are located on that single worker node. The supported cloud providers so far are AWS, GCP, and Azure. If you are interested in adding support for a new cloud provider, please feel free to file a ticket, and we can add support for that. If you'd like to try Virtual Kubelet, please check out the GitHub repo, and KIP, which is one of the providers that is set up with Virtual Kubelet, is also an open source project, and the demo that we did a couple of minutes ago used KIP under the covers. And if you'd like to try Virtual Kubelet with KIP, there are Terraform scripts available for both GCP and AWS. Feel free to use them. And if you'd like to read more materials on Nodeless Kubernetes ecosystem, please check out Elotle blog and the CNCF webinar on using Virtual Kubelet for cloud bursting use case. Thanks so much for Brendan Wilmore and John from Elotle Engineering, and Gia and Brian from Virtual Kubelet team, and Cloud Native and Open Source Virtual Summit China organizers. And thank you so much for listening to this talk. If you have any questions, Virtual Kubelet team hangs out on Virtual Kubelet channel on Kubernetes Slack. You can also file issues at the GitHub repo for both Virtual Kubelet and KIP, or you can shoot me an email. And let's transition over to Q&A at this point. Thank you so much.
感谢 Mandarin 带来的精彩演讲。下面我们进入问答环节，请在 Q&A 面板上留下您的问题，我们会挑选部分问题，请讲师予以回答。Thank you for your great talk, Mandarin. We have now entered into the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please leave them in the Q&A panel. Now we have 2 questions. Mandarin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm trying to start my video, and it says I can't start the video because the host has stopped it. I'll go ahead and start answering the questions in the order in which they were asked. The first one was from Hong Lee, asking if there are plans to include KIP as part of Virtual Kubelet or as a sandbox project under CNCF. Virtual Kubelet providers are hosted in their own repos just to have cleanliness of separation for the various providers that are out in the market. So the provider for KIP is open source, and it's listed under GitHub Elotle KIP. It's not part of CNCF sandbox right now, but we can definitely consider getting it under, getting it as a part of CNCF if there is interest. So thanks so much for suggesting that. The next question is from Sunil Agarwal, asking if the virtual pod is different from a regular pod. And there is no difference between a virtual pod and a regular pod. I'm sorry about referring to the virtual the pod that's deployed through Virtual Kubelet as a virtual pod. So these are all regular pods that are deployed through your regular Kubernetes control panel. And when the pod is deployed, the compute for it comes up just in time, as opposed to being pre-provisioned before the pod is running. So a pod is a pod that's a regular pod. There is no such thing as a virtual pod, and sorry about the terminology that was used while referring to the pod as a virtual pod. The next question is from Frank, who is asking how to add more cloud providers, support in KIP, and we would like to see popular cloud providers in China be made available to support KIP. And we'd love to add more cloud providers to KIP. We are currently supporting AWS and GCP, and Azure will be coming out in a month or so, pretty soon. We'd love to add further cloud providers to further cloud provider support for KIP. If there are cloud providers outside of AWS, GCP, and Azure that you would be interested in seeing as part of KIP, please file an issue under KIP, and we will definitely add support for it. Thank you so much. Let me point out the issues section for KIP, where you can add the cloud providers that you would be interested in seeing under KIP, and we will add support for it. Thanks so much. The last question.
So the last question is in Chinese. I would dare to translate that into English for you. So
sure, thank you. Mm-hmm.
The question is whether Virtual Kubelet can implement the federation of Kubernetes. Is that a relevant question?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So virtual kubelet can be used to implement federation under the covers within the reporting to a single control plane. So if you have a single control plane and you have a virtual kubelet node that is configured with KIP to dispatch pods to say AWS region A, and a virtual kubelet that is configured to dispatch pods to say Azure or GCP, both the virtual kubelets are running underneath a single Kubernetes control plane. That is one way to implement federation. So the answer to the question is yes, virtual kubelet is one path to implementing federation of a single Kubernetes control plane.
Thank
so
you.
if you look at the slides that have been uploaded for the talk, slide number 13 has a picture that actually illustrates how the federation can be implemented. The last question is from Sunil Agarwal. What kind of security precautions would we need to take in case of virtual kubelet? So that's a really good question, Sunil. If you would like to use virtual kubelet, if you'd like to use virtual kubelet, especially for federation or shipping pods to multiple AZs or multiple cloud providers, as long as you configure the virtual kubelet and KIP with the right security groups and with the right network policies to take care of the security isolation for the pods that are being dispatched through that virtual kubelet, you can still ensure that all of the security precautions that you would normally take, that you would normally apply to regular pods being shipped to a set of worker nodes, they still apply. So there is nothing extra that you would need to take care of in case of virtual kubelet that is not applicable in case of regular worker nodes. There are certain interesting cases where you need to think about networking security policies. For example, if you have an on-premise Kubernetes cluster and you have virtual kubelet that's running on the on-premise Kubernetes cluster that is shipping pods to say AWS as part of the virtual kubelet, you would need to make sure that the VPC or direct connect between your on-premise data center and your AWS VPC is in place. So as long as the connectivity and security policies between your regular Kubernetes cluster and the environment where your virtual kubelet is shipping pods to are in place, there is nothing extra that needs to be configured for shipping pods through virtual kubelet. Please let me know if that answers your question or if there is any follow-up. Thank you. I think, Alice, are there any other questions or is that the end?
If you have any questions, please leave them in the QA column. I guess that's it. And thank you for a great talk, and thank you for for answering those questions.
Thank you so much, Alice. Really appreciate the moderation.
Bye.
Bye-bye.